Another duly noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point. Okay, welcome into another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI, which I was just at recently, by the way, and coming to you from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Gator Studios. We're doing the show here today. We, of course, didn't have a show Monday because it was Christmas, and you and I got off for Christmas, but and we'll have a special show on Sunday. Today's show is going to be great. We got Dennis Dodd from CBS Sports. I consider him to be one of the biggest authorities on college football. We'll have him on. And then on Sunday, we're going to do a show where we're going to preview the Alabama, Michigan, and the Texas Washington game and talk about some of the other bowl games and do all of our stuff. It'll be a condensed show, though. Probably 30, 35 minutes, whatever it ends up being. It'll be as long as I feel like talking. But the point of it was we didn't want to do a show on Monday when none of you wanted to listen to a show talking about the playoffs when you are watching the playoffs. So anyway, that's what we're doing. And then on Thursday, we'll be back with a regular time. We'll be in studio, and it'll be Coach Spurrier will join us for that show. So he'll be back. So we got a lot of stuff going on. And look forward to going forward. And thanks to Zach for making it all work. Let's get to our Process Service of Gainesville starting five, brought to you as always by Process Service of Gainesville, Scott Hart, and the great job he does over there. We appreciate him. And let's get right to it. Number one on the Process Service of Gainesville starting five. And I know that we'll talk with Dennis a little bit about this probably, but Trevor Etienne going to Georgia was like one of the big bombshells over the weekend. And I mean, I had already heard that he was probably going to be Georgia or Alabama. I'm like, well, I hope he goes to Alabama. But, you know, it's kind of sad because he was one of my favorite players. And on that team, in fact, maybe the favorite. I loved it when he was in the game. However, he had some flaws. One of them was he couldn't pass protect, so they wouldn't put him in when they knew they were going to throw the ball. And otherwise, I think he would have played a lot more. But hey, look, it is what it is. A guy is going to look out for himself. This is and I don't want to say I'm trying to put this the right way. I'm not singling out Etienne. I certainly I'm not going to root for him. In fact, it's funny. You know what? Danny Werfel put this thing out today on Twitter that if you have an ETN jersey and you want to send it to him, he'll send you back one. I think it's the first 10 people. He'll send you back a Danny Werfel signed number 7, the real number 7 jersey. And there are people bombing on ETN. But this is the world we live in. Look, the other day I was telling you guys about the good side of the transfer portal, which was that athletes are being able to go to better schools and get better degrees out of this. And people don't talk about that. But there is the danger. The danger is that all the same schools are just going to keep getting the best players. You know, we've seen all this portal change. I have no idea who's playing anywhere, and it's still going on. And it certainly is going on. Florida's still actively in the recruiting. But the more you win, it seems like, especially in the SEC, the more you win, the more likely you are to get portal guys. So when you go 5 and 7, you're going to have to take the next level guys. And I think that's been a problem for Florida. In fact, I wrote this thing for Gators Wire, 12 things, which I do all the time. In fact, got another one coming up. You're going to some of you aren't going to like the next one I'm doing because it's going to be 12 New Year's resolutions for Gator fans. So you probably aren't going to like that one. But I think you'll get an interest out of it. But this one was about 12 things that we hope the Gators got for Christmas. And that's, NIL and all that stuff. They're all in there. But I mean, that is the thing that Florida's got to get. Is they got to get we've talked about this acquisition of talent with Billy Napier, and that was his goal. But the problem is when you put up 5 and 7, I'm sorry, some players are going to say, I don't want to go there now. And they're going to get recruited against. Why would you go there? They're 5 and 7. Transfer portal. Why would you go there? They're 5 and 7. The other thing is 80 million quarterbacks that you've heard of and that you are interested in have come out. And of course, Florida's not interested in a quarterback. They've got 2 guys for next year. They're set. But we'll see how things change. All right. That is number 1 on the process service of Gainesville starting 5. Number 2 is I figured out why the bowls, and like, I'm a big believer that people who complain about too many bowls are just, get off my lawn people. And I'm not one of them. I wish there were more bowls. There was 5 and 7 Minnesota playing in a bowl. I guess it's because they had to be a Big Ten team, and that was the last one they had. And so I was wondering, well, I wonder why Florida couldn't get in, but I think it was a Big Ten thing. But who cares? I don't know if I wanted to watch this team play anymore. But the bowls are easy to criticize. And they're easy to criticize because you get a bunch of average teams playing. And sometimes one team things go bad and they're ready to go. Or they have multiple opt-outs. FSU's got 19 players that are missing from their roster, either opting out or injured. And you get all these, so everybody's like, I don't want to watch this. There's too many bowls. All these guys are opting out. Well, I don't know what you can do about that. But the biggest thing for the bowls to me is that you don't have options. You have one bowl game, and that's the only one that's on. And like, you spend the whole college football season flipping. You're flipping back and forth. In my case, I've got 2 TVs set up. And a third one, sometimes I'll use this laptop as a third one, and you can always be flipping. But with these bowl games, you're like, I got one game, that's it. Now we're coming up to the time where you're going to get a couple of games at certain times, but that's ESPN's plan. We're going to show you the only college football you can watch, and this is it. If you want to watch it, great. And the numbers are good. They have no problem with it. But the real problem is the opting out. But I mean, what can you do? I've heard somebody say, in fact, I'm going to write this down right now because that is a good thing for that Gators Wire thing I'm going to do about the resolutions. But I've heard people say you need to write it into their contract that you can't opt out of the bowl game, or you need to put something in, and it needs to be part of their NIL deal. Well, you could do that, but then every other school that doesn't do that is going to get that player instead, or they're going to have a better chance to get the player. And everybody wants to. Why do we need buyouts? Why do we need opt-outs? To get what you want. Now, buyouts don't always work out. Certainly didn't for Texas A&M, but they light cigars with $10,000 bills out there, so that's not a problem. But to me, I guess what I'm trying to say is that the bowls are there. They're there for a reason. There's a combination of reasons, and everybody looks at small crowds and everything and lose their minds and opt-outs, but they're there. They're just background music until you get to the really good ones, and then you watch them. My wife loves to have bowl games on, and sometimes she doesn't even know what's going on in them. She goes, "Hey, are they winning now?" But she wants them on in the background. I agree with her while she's cooking and doing all the wonderful stuff. By the way, and let me get to number 3 first. Number 3 on our process service of Gainesville starting 5. I did want to talk about Christmas a little bit. We had the 4 Christmases this year, which I told Karen, and I got yelled at by my oldest daughter, but it's not 4 Christmases. It was to me, because we had Christmas at her family's, my wife's family, Christmas at my family, up in Jacksonville or in St. Augustine. We had a party on a Friday night with some people here, and we had to get ready for that. And we had our own Christmas here. So to me, it was 4 Christmases, and it was a lot of work for my wife. who did an amazing job. Amazing. She is my hero. She really is. And I got some cool things. I got I'm not going to show it to you, but I got a golf putting green that goes linked to my office now. So I've already been working hard on my putting game and got some other great things. But anyway, the point of it was that when I went, everywhere I went for Christmas was a different mood than I'd ever experienced. I think it felt like it was. Look, fans, and again, all the people I was with, I think every single one of them at all 4 Christmases was a Gator fan. There was one that was an FSU fan. But everywhere I went, every one of these Christmas things I went to, it was the negativity was just followed. It's people had all the questions used to be about, do you think we'll get this guy? Do you think this is going to happen? Who do you think? But this time it was more like if you got a Gator shirt, people went, "Are you sure you want to wear that in public?" You know, stuff like that. Don't divorce him, man. It's still, hey, if you want to flip over to, if you want to go ETN, if you want to be an ETN, go ahead and do it. Go follow Georgia. We'll be fine without you. Okay, here in Gainesville. But anyway, it was a lot of negativity that just Florida does need some good news. There's no doubt about it. They need some good news to come out. And I know they've made some hires, strength coach and nutrition coach, both of them coming from the NFL, and of course, 2 of the defensive coaches. But nothing that blows you away as a positive. You hope they've hired the right guys, but how do you know? Just because the guy was in the NFL doesn't mean he's going to be good at what he does, but we'll see. And it's going to be on the field where we'll find out. You know, I also ran into a lot of people who said, look, I listened to your radio show. In fact, I ran into one yesterday. I listened to your radio show. You guys haven't been on. Yeah, we took 2 weeks off. Everybody needs to, I think more than anything, I needed a break from Gator fans and they needed a break from me more than anything. But I had a lot of people say, hey, look, you got to give him 4 years, right? And I'm like, I've always said that, but he's got to win some games. And that's, and you asked me how many, I never set a number, but I know 5 and 7 is not going to cut it. Even against that miserable schedule, you go 5 and 7 2 years in a row, you're not going to be employed. I mean, I'm sorry. It's just the way it works. But anyway, they need some good news coming out. I mean, right now they're ranked 39th in the portal. I mean, they only have got 4 players in the portal, and hopefully they're going to get some more. They've got places open, and you know, some guys have left, and obviously it's weird. All right, number 4 on the process service of Gainesville starting 5. The NFL dominated last week. I will tell you that from my standpoint. I will tell you that from everywhere I went. People wanted to watch the NFL. The games were important. The bowls weren't good. They weren't games that you must see bowl games and everything like that. So the NFL was dominant, and there was a lot of great stories. But all I care about is going forward. And this weekend is going to be all about college football. Now, Sunday, when there's no college football games, there will be some NFL interest and everything. You know, I'll be interested. But this is about college football this weekend. In a minute, we'll give you the Swamp Restaurant games of the weekend. But it is just this is going to be a dominant college football weekend with the 2 playoff games, but also big names in the other bowls. A lot of SEC teams playing. One of them played last night. Lost their starting quarterback was their 13 quarterback because everybody was gone. And he broke his arm on the first play of the game. I don't know if you saw that. That was unbelievable. They actually fought back in it. I'll give Texas A&M some credit. And they had everybody opted out. So, but I still watched the game, and it was fun. It was interesting. I watched the USC game. I'll get to that in a minute. All right. Finally, number 5 on the process service of Gainesville, starting 5. Fred Taylor. Good news for him. He is in the finalist list for the first time for the NFL Hall of Fame. I think Heisman and Canton are the two biggest honors you can have. Again, I'm not a baseball guy. Some people say Cooperstown. The NBA is, I don't think there's, winning the championship is the only thing that matters. Anyway, the point is Fred Taylor is a finalist. So he was in the top 25. They whittle it down to 15. He made that list, but I got to be honest with you, and I'm not saying he shouldn't make it. I'm not saying I hope he doesn't make it. I hope he does. I love Fred Taylor. In fact, I've got a great story about him later on. But I just don't see it because, and it's not because of what he did. I just look at the guys. Antonio Gates is getting in before him. I think Torrey Holt's getting in before him. I looked at the list and I went, I couldn't vote against anybody. In fact, there are guys that didn't make that final cut to 15 that I'm looking at. I'm like, how did Hines Ward not make that list? Okay, all right. But anyway, it's a weird way they do it if they still do it the way they used to. In fact, Sam Kovaras told me a story once. That would have made a good Pat Dooley story time, but I'll tell it here anyway. He was, and I guess he still is, the voting member for Jacksonville. So all 32 teams, and there's some national guys, and I'm not sure of the exact number of people that vote. I could look that up, but I don't want to. So they sit around a room, and one person does the presentation. And a lot of people felt like the guy doing it for the Rams for many years wasn't very eloquent or didn't do a good job, and that's why Youngblood took so long to get in. But Sam told me, he said, I always get asked, he stood up and asked this, he said, I get asked this question more than any question about sports. Why is Jack Youngblood not in the Hall of Fame? And I just, and I think that kind of pushed him over the top. Anyway, that's how they get in. So a guy gets up, presents the candidate, says what he's done great, and then they all talk about it, and then they vote on it. And 5 guys will get in at the most. That's the most they'll put in. And if it's gonna be hard for him to get in. I hope he does. I will celebrate because I love Fred, but I just think it's gonna be hard. But anyway, it's great that he made the finals. The problem with all these Hall of Fames, including the Florida Hall of Fame, is as you go forward, more people become eligible, and the other ones almost kind of drop off. I think that's what happened with Roger Maris. In fact, he got to a point where he just kind of dropped off because now they had all these other players eligible that had great stats. I know the Florida Hall of Fame. Now you're getting a lot of people that have fulfilled the requirement of being out for a certain amount of time, and now they can that's who's going to get in. And so the older players who haven't gotten in, older athletes, it's going to be a struggle for them. But anyway, good news for Fred Taylor, and we hope he gets in. I would say maybe on Yes, Nowhere, maybe. Well, we'll play that game in just a little bit with Dennis Dodd and talk to him about where he's going, the Rose Bowl. I envy him. I don't envy traveling, and I don't envy a lot of things, but I envy people who are going to the Rose Bowl to watch Texas and Alabama and sit in the press box. That I do envy. But we'll be back with Dennis from CBS Sports after we take this break here on another Duly Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law, Dooley Dome Gator Studios.
Process Service of Gainesville offers a rapid turnaround on affidavits of service for Gator lawyers locally and nationwide. Our friend Scott Hart offers immediate responses on status requests and is a member of NAPS and FAPS. And he has been a part of the community for almost 2 decades. Need service? Call Process Service of Gainesville at 407-697-9592 or email shartgators, that's G8TR, at yahoo.com. And make sure you ask about the paralegal legal secretary bonus program.
All right, Coach. Last year, the best party in Gator Nation was a Storyers Visors rooftop. But now, we're in 23, we're celebrating this year. What the restaurant has planned for this year, New Year's Eve.
That's right. We got usual great food here at Spurrier's. We got wonderful music, and it's the best way to ring in 2024. It's going to be Advisor's Rooftop Bar from 7 through midnight to about 1 a.m. We got elevated hors d'oeuvres. We got sparkling wine pairings. We're going to dance to the DJ Elio here all through the night. Got to be 21 and older, but the tickets are going fast.
And so how much are the tickets for?
The Visor party tickets are $125 a piece, and trust me, you'll get your money's worth.
Now, Coach, where can we purchase the ticket?
You can purchase the tickets at www.spurriers.com.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life. And the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
Okay, and welcome back to another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Gator Studios. It's a great pleasure to bring on a good friend of mine, Dennis Dodd from CBS Sports, right before he wings his way to the West Coast. How are you, Dennis?
I'm great, Pat. Just getting into bowl season. It's getting a little bit exciting now with the name brands coming in.
Yeah, that's what I was like looking at all the games that were on yesterday. I was like, will, won't, will, you know. But then you get to a point where it's like, oh, I'm gonna try to watch at least parts of all those games. And I would guess for you, it doesn't get old to be going to the Rose Bowl to cover Michigan, Alabama in a playoff game. I can't think that's, you know, I mean, you're going to work your tail off, but it's not, you don't consider it really that hard.
No, that's my favorite. Always has been. Went there for the first time in 2002, the first BCS championship held in the Rose Bowl. It's the first Rose Bowl that was disconnected with the Big Ten and Pac-10 back then.
Yeah.
And actually went to the place where the first Rose Bowl was played in 1902. I think it was Stanford, Michigan, which is now the track at Division III Caltech. And they actually have a marker there. In a playground right next to the track on this site in 1902, the first Rose Bowl was played. And the reason they call it the granddaddy of them all is because they didn't play another one for 18 more years. It was just the Tournament of Roses. It was the parade, chariot races. And then in 1920, they started playing it. And in 1947, Big Ten and Pac-10 played it until 2002. So that I distinctly remember how hard that was for traditional Rose Bowl people. The statement that I remember is from Miami or Nebraska. I can't remember who, but they said it was made known to us that we should wipe our feet before we go into the venue.
I was lucky to go there. I went there twice. I went to the 90, so it would have been 97 Northwestern USC. Yeah. Keyshawn Johnson. Because I was already it was 96. So I was there at the Fiesta Bowl with Florida. And then I got to cover a Super Bowl there. And it is a unique stadium, and it is set against the mountains. You don't see anything like that anywhere else.
Yeah, I went last year. I came over from the Fiesta Bowl because that was a semifinal, TCU and Michigan, and just flew over to see Penn State, Utah, because it was the last traditional matchup, really headed into the new playoff era. And it rained for the first time in 35 years at the Rose Bowl, talking about how special the Rose Bowl is. So we did not see the sunset over the San Gabriels.
Oh.
But for a third place Penn State and a Pac-12 champion Utah, it was still as special as anything you can imagine. I mean, I remember going there when USC was a dynasty, when Penn State and Joe Paterno went one year, and he was so upset they lost. He didn't allow the media into the locker room, which is you have to in the BCS, or it was a fine. Well, he didn't care. And my favorite memory, real quick, 2009, Texas, Alabama, and Colt McCoy gets hurt on the fifth snap of the game, hurts his shoulder. Obviously, Texas loses. And I'm going into the Texas locker room, and coming the other way by himself is Mac Brown from an interview. And I said, what would have happened if Colt didn't get hurt? He goes, it wouldn't have been close. You know, he's still charged up. And I use that quote, and he won't forgive me, years later. I mean, he's fine with it, but I'll never forget that quote. In the moment, the emotion, that was huge.
Yeah. That was pretty good Alabama team too, though.
Yeah, they were good. Yeah. Definitely.
Well, let's talk about those two games, the playoff games that are coming up on Monday. And obviously, the Rose Bowl is going to be the one everybody's going to be watching. I'm surprised they didn't switch those in terms of prime time. I would have thought you would want Michigan and Alabama playing on prime time, but it is what it is. Nobody asked me any of those questions.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. Michigan gets first choice because they're number one, so certainly they're going to the Rose Bowl, traditional home. But the Rose Bowl is locked in. That's one concession they got. They are locked in January 1st, 5:00 Eastern. So that time and place is locked in. I don't think it's going to be locked in the future. In fact, I know it's not because of the 12-team playoff. You're going to be moving teams all over the place. So, but they did get that.
Yeah, well, it'll be fun to watch. And I don't know how you see it going. I just have a feeling that Michigan getting that letter of what do they call it? NOA.
Yeah.
That they got getting that is just one more reason to go out and win this game. And I think they love that it happened.
Yeah, no, I think, look, I looked it up. Look, Michigan's number one. People have forgotten about that. Okay, what does that mean? It means that in the 9 previous playoffs, the number one seed has only won 3 times. Number 2, I think Michigan, as the number one seed, has the toughest road. Not only do they have to play Nick Saban in Alabama, who's on a heater right now, then they would play a Heisman-worthy quarterback with a high-powered offense in the championship game. You can't say that about the other teams. If Texas wins, I think they're expected to win over Washington. Alabama is favored in this game. I think is it Michigan? No, wait, Michigan's a 1.5.
I think Michigan's favored by 3.
1.5 point favorite, but and throw in the fact that Michigan's gotten here twice and lost twice, a third one in a row. I don't even know what the word is. It wouldn't be pressure on Jim Harbaugh. He's the central figure in 2 major NCAA investigations. He missed half the season because he was suspended. What's more, losing another playoff game?
So I guess they won't name him the AP Coach of the Year. Since you missed half of the games, but if you
you actually have to be on the sideline to win that award, so maybe not. That was a big thing. There's so many tentacles to this season. The first, I had to go. I wrote this. The first 3 games were that he was suspended were credited to the records of the assistants who coached, and there were 4 coaches who coached in 3 games. They split one game. So those 4 coaches are in some way 1-0. The last 3 games are Harbaugh because obviously they wanted to get the Ohio State win on there, even though Sharon Moore, their offensive coordinator, I thought did a great job. But you've got that complicating things.
Yeah, it's crazy. Let me ask you this question because, again, there's a lot of people that are yelling at the clouds out there. Too many bowls. And I'm like, nobody's making you watch it. Would you rather watch cornhole on ESPN? I mean, it's an option. They bought all this inventory, and that's what they use it for. And if you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. I just don't understand why people complain too much.
Yeah, I've simplified this years ago. ESPN, you're talking about them owning, I don't know, what is it, 40 of the 42 bowls or whatever it is. I don't know what the number is. The vast majority of bowls, they flat out own them or own the rights to them. Those bowls do a better number, whatever they are, whoever's playing in them, than say bowling or cornhole, like you said. And that's the simple answer. It does a number on TV in December during the holidays, and it's worth it to advertisers to be inside those games. So I think that's really easy. And again, yeah, you don't like it, don't watch.
Yeah, in some cases I watched, and they didn't even have to send the announcers, and they were doing it in home. I think I know I saw one with I can't remember who it was. I think it was Richard Cross doing it. But anyway, all right, let's turn to the big bowl game, of course, this weekend, which is in our state, in Miami, Georgia against what's left of Florida State. First of all, I never talked to you about what your take was on them not getting in, FSU.
Oh yeah, I mean, I weighed in. They came to me background. I'm in Atlanta for the SEC championship game. We get up and do a live shot for HQ. That's our streaming channel. Do a live shot from the College Football Hall of Fame, 12:20 Eastern PM. They come to me first for whatever reason. Dennis, what's your reaction? And I said it was an abomination. I said, we have been led to believe since this system was put together in 1998 that a major conference undefeated champion has to get in. In fact, it was put together because Auburn was left out in 04. Mike Slive got the ball rolling that year. This will never happen again. And for some reason, Feinbaum, I don't know who, in some respect, Florida State became North Alabama and the ACC became the MAC. And I don't understand that. I thought the SEC was down. I think, what was it? The ACC, I think, had a winning record against the SEC. And I thought it was myopic for the committee to base an entire season on the fact that a third string quarterback did not look good and that offense did not look good in winning a Power 5 conference and going undefeated. If we're going to use that logic, then it's recency bias, because you know who else played a third string quarterback, went on the road and won by double digits and looked terrible doing it? September 16th, Alabama. The week before, they, whatever the verb is, lucked one out against Auburn. So don't tell me that deserving best team. Florida State's in. They broke protocol. I see why Florida State's upset. I don't think it's a credible playoff without Florida State. And I think you can make the argument it may not be a credible playoff without Alabama. That's the problem with 5 Power 5 conferences for now and 4 spots. But Alabama lost a game. Not only did they lose a game, they got worked at home by Texas.
Yeah.
And I was taught a long time ago in this system, BCS, you lose a game, you don't have room to argue. You can, but at the end of the day, there's so many teams with one loss, you don't have the upper hand necessarily. So I thought it was terrible. I thought they booted it.
Yeah, I felt the same way. But obviously being in Gainesville, it was okay.
Right.
I mean, everybody's like, yeah, they got screwed, but we're good with it.
Right.
But and so now they have this lawsuit. Your column, or you can read it on CBSSports.com about the bluster of FSU's lawsuit. I agree with everything you said in that. It's gonna. Who knows if we'll even have this resolved in 10 years?
Right. Right. Oh yeah. No, it'll take a period. I tried to cut to the chase. We know Florida State's upset, and we know why. We know on some level their legal reasoning, but now we know that Florida State isn't going to be in the ACC in maybe the near future. But what's the near future? I said like 2030 when this thing is lined up in court. I think a big part of this is the ACC not only responded right away, they responded the day before we found out. So this is going to be a fight. And with all these things, I think that it will resolve itself in some way when the two sides figure out that there's more money to be spent in court than there is in a settlement. Yeah. I think it's as simple as that. Whether that happens in 2 years or 10 years, or I kind of cut the line at 2030. That'll be kind of the year. But it looks like to me the ACC is fully resigned to having a really pissed off Florida State in its league for as long as it can. That the grant of rights is binding. Now I'm sitting down to read the complaint. It's 38 pages, and I'm told it's pretty compelling. That's not to say they're going to win in court anytime soon, but yeah. I think it's worth mentioning that you better believe Clemson, Miami, North Carolina, and others have read it now. And are they going to piggyback this thing? The future of the ACC, to me, is another discussion. It's not good, but it's another discussion.
All right. Dennis is coming to us, of course, on the Big Mills Cheesesteak Zoom line, and it's time for us to play our game of yes, no way, or maybe. 3 questions for Dennis to answer yes, no way, or maybe, brought to you by Big Mills Cheesesteak. If you go there and say you watched or listened to another duly noted podcast, free fries with your order. Number 1. All right, we're getting to the situation where there are not too many bowls, Dennis, but are there too many bowls where they're putting food on top of coaches?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not a big condiment on grown adults type thing, and I got in trouble for that a couple of years ago. But it's fine. It's fun. There's a reason all these bowls have sponsors. They try to get their names out there. And if you watch ESPN or Fox or any of the rights holders, they will, the first responders bowl, to the point that I have no idea where they're being played sometimes.
No.
I know where the Peach Bowl is. I have no idea where I think I know where the Military Bowl is. It's in Fort Worth, but the sponsor has overtaken the bowl itself. Obviously, Duke's, Mayo's, and Charlotte, and that's a great bowl. But yeah, I mean, when food is intervening, it's a problem sometimes.
Yeah, my wife was watching a game in the Mayo Bowl, and she said, and they kept showing everybody eating mayonnaise, like on French fries and everything. And finally, she goes, "I love mayonnaise, but I think I'm going to swear off of it after this."
Right.
All right, number 2 on yes, no way, or maybe. All right, is it Michigan and Texas in the final?
I've got Alabama and Texas, and I've got Texas winning it all. I would love to see the rematch. I think you can make a case for any of the 4, maybe not Washington because they have the number 93 defense, but they're coming of age. If you watched, beating Oregon twice is significant, but
sure.
I think low key Texas might have the most complete team. I know defensively there are some questions, but they get one of their starting safeties back, Barron, who had one of those interceptions against Alabama. They have shown no effects from losing their leading rusher, Jonathan Brooks, to injury and ACL. CJ Baxter and some other freshmen have stepped up. The receiving room is one of the best in the country. And I think Quinn Ewers, a guy who came up with much hype, is now, kind of ascending to that. I think he's playing better than he has in his career. So I think they can go head to head with Washington and beat them in what looks like a shootout. And then look who has the most motivation in a rematch with Alabama. Texas won the game at Alabama. What more do you have to do? But Alabama since then, to Nick Saban's credit, I think we both agree this is his best coaching job. It's been fantastic. Has done nothing but take this roster, and I would love to compare it to his other championship rosters for people that know more than me where this slots, because it's not one of the best. It's turned out that it's grown together since September 9th, but for the same reason Alabama couldn't win a championship is now the best reason they can. Jalen Milroe is the best player on the field going into that Michigan game. Whether they win or not is something else, but he's made himself a Heisman candidate, a run pass guy, a guy who stood up to Georgia's defense and beat them when he had to and run the clock out. I think that was the biggest thing. Is huge. So I think that would be the most compelling matchup to me. A rematch of superpowers within the balance. Nick Saban's just going to be his walk-off. We've heard those rumors. Is Texas back? Well, that would prove it once and for all that Texas is back. That would get really juicy. These 2 games, I think you agree, Pat, the 2 best we've had in the CFP era.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait for them. Finally, number 3 on yes, no way, or maybe. It's been 3 years since it's happened, but Florida will play in a bowl game next year after Christmas. They haven't played in a bowl game after Christmas in 3 years.
Wow. Maybe. The planets aren't aligning right now. The Trevor Etienne thing is disturbing, but you can get over it. Recruiting it what it is right now. But look, I've come to figure out with these opt-outs, we're watching a series of glorified spring games mostly, and you can draw conclusions, but it's your own peril. You know, I like that the new, kind of like three, at least early in the week, three new 5-star quarterbacks are making their debut. We saw Miller Moss for USC, Avery Johnson against Kansas State, and Jackson Arnold for Oklahoma. I think that's kind of fun. But if we're going to draw conclusions on that, I think it's a little bit risky. Florida's best take is that, it's a 12-team playoff. I'm not going to say they're getting into a playoff, but it's going to automatically be more competitive for them. So I'll say maybe.
Yeah, and the schedule set it up. It's a very hard schedule, but there's opportunities to win big games, So we'll see how that goes. Dennis, always great talking to you. I can't wait to see what kind of swag you get from the Rose Bowl. You're gonna have to text that to me, okay?
Well, there's only one that I get. I go ahead and buy a football from the concession stand, and in various years, they're big, little. It's about $30, but it's got both teams embossed on the side. That's my keepsake. I'm looking around the room. I've got about 10 of them, and most of them are from the Rose Bowl.
Cool.
That to me is pretty cool. That's my swag.
Okay. All right, Dennis. Great talking to you again. I appreciate it. We'll be back with more of another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Studios when we return here. Thanks, buddy.
All right, bud.
Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from another Dooley Noted podcast. This is a great Adam Brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam Brewer to Go. What gave you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place like this?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Rib Co. to Go. Come on down and enjoy it.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Spite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
I was driving behind a lady, and very suddenly she moved out of the way. There was a log laying in the road, and when I hit my brakes, I went on top of the log. I had 280 discs. I just haven't been the same since. Jeffrey Meldon fought for me all the way. Him and his team really went there for me. Throughout the whole lawsuit, he made sure that my bills was paid. It was never no whenever I called him and asked him for something.
Call Meldon Law right now.
Okay, and welcome back to another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Gator Studios. Again, we will be doing another show Sunday, which will be out Sunday afternoon. And you'll be able to download that right up until the game time for the playoff games. We'll talk about them a lot. And we'll do all of our usual stuff, all of our fun stuff as well. And usually we start off with Hesser and Kipke. And Hesser and Kipke is a Gainesville law firm specializing in the areas of workers' compensation and family law. Ken and Jennifer take great pride in their one-to-one focus on each and every client they represent. Ken is board certified in workers' compensation law by the Florida Bar, while Jennifer possesses extensive jury trial experience with a nearly 20-year background as a prosecutor. Don't believe me? Well, check out their 5-star Google reviews, set an appointment at hklawfl.com, or better yet, give them a call at 339-9920, Hesser and Kipke. When I'm reading that, my mind kind of travels, like half of my mind travels, and I lose my place. I did it just for a minute. I only had a little pause though. But anyway, Hesser and Kipke, we appreciate them. They've been a great friend and great sponsor for our show. Let's get to it. Number one, the Pistons Not good. Anybody who plays them, good. 27 in a row they've lost going into tonight's game. Now, if you're listening to this tomorrow, you probably already know the result of tonight's game. If you're listening to it tomorrow, I will tell you, they lost, I'm sure, because they're playing the Celtics. So they're not, I think it's at Boston too. So that they're going to lose that game. 27 consecutive is a new record, but they need to lose one more because there was a 76ers team that lost 28 over 2 seasons. So if they want to they'll get to that record, and then can they get past that record? Can you imagine being their fan? And I know their owner came out and said, "Stay with us. We've got a plan for this." I'm like, you lost 27 in a row. There doesn't seem to look 5-7 looks really good compared to 27 straight losses. I will say that. Let's get to number 2, which is another weird story. I guess you could call the Pistons weird. Although I cannot name a player on the current Pistons team. Is Lambier still playing? And that is a Russell Wilson story, which after further examination, you find out what's going on there. And that is Russell Wilson gets benched. They're going to start Jared Stidham, former Auburn quarterback. And the deal is if he gets hurt and can't pass the physical, I think it's in March, he gets paid $37 million. So they want him passing the physical. So they should wrap him in bubble wrap for 3 months. This is the NFL. This is what you do. You don't try to win games when, it's just the whole Russell Wilson dynamic is weird because he's actually had a way better season than last year, but it's not been very good. It's been way better than it was, but still pretty average. And he's got a fiery coach who does not put up with much, Sean Payton, as we know. In fact, if you remember, if you go back to that, was it last week or the week before? That game where Peyton was chewing Russell Wilson out after a touchdown. We were trying to figure out what was going on. Well, he's clearly not happy. So we'll see what happens there. And finally, number 3 on Hesser and Kipke 3 things. I do want to give a shout out to my man, Jeff Schultz. And if you guys don't know, Jeff Schultz been on this podcast before. In fact, we would have him on all the time if it was up to me because I love talking to him. He's a great guy, a great writer, and he's loves the Braves like I do. But he retired he was actually now at the Athletic. He was at the AJC all those years. One of my favorite people to see in the press box or at media days, and we would just have great talks and go out to dinner. But he has decided to retire, and his quote was great. He said, "I want to find out what." Somebody said, "You're going to be bored." He said, "I want to find out what boredom is, what it feels like." I do too, sometimes, but no, I still punching away. I still like what I do, including this podcast. I love this podcast. Look forward to it twice a week. I missed it on Monday. I mean, because we couldn't do it. Obviously, we weren't going to do it on Christmas. I don't think the family would have said, "Yeah, just go do your podcast for an hour." But anyway, Jeff Schultz, I hope to see you soon, man. I've got friends who live up there who've been begging me to come up for a Braves game. Steve Hummer, who's been on this show too. Maybe if we can work something out where I can see Hummer and Jeff Schultz both, and maybe some of my other buddies, Chip Towers and those guys. We'll go up there. But anyway, Jeff Schultz, go read his farewell column on The Athletic if you're a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber, you can probably find it anyway. And I got to be honest, I don't think I'll re-up because I am a subscriber to The Athletic because Andy Staples and Jeff Schultz, they're both gone. So anyway, all right, that's going to do it for Hesser and Kipke 3 things. Let's get to our Adams Ribco to go Gator of the Week. And you go, "Hey, Pat, it must be Fred Taylor." Well, it was going to be Fred Taylor. By the way, Adams Ribco to go. I got to, again, shout out. My oldest daughter and her husband were here all for like 5 or 6 days, and they had to go there and get takeout because they said, "What do you want?" And they go, "Can we get Adams?" And I go, "Yes, of course you can get Adams." And man, it was so good. But so anyway, but it's not. You know who it's this is the one I came up with. Ellie McKissick, who announced that she is coming back for a year she didn't have to come back for, but she has eligibility left for the Florida volleyball team. Florida needed to have somebody come back, you know? And I know that you could say, well, I mean, what you going to a pro league? I mean, it's not like there is look, it's easy to want to get on. I mean, Florida just had for them an awful year. It was for them, not for anybody else, but for them, it was an awful year. Obviously, the injuries they had were a big part of it. So she's coming back. So that makes her the Gator of the week. Adams Ripco to go. That's the way I'm saying it, and I think you guys will probably agree with me. And some of you will say, volleyball? I don't watch volleyball. Well, you should. It's a lot of fun. And so I know Mary Wise is very excited about it. I know that. I saw some of her tweets. So Ellie McKissick is our Adams Ripco to go Gator of the week. Let's get to our Leonardo's and Millhopper quick picks. And most of you, well, some of you already have qualified because you picked USC to win. And I think Ohio State was the other pick. So we'll have a lot of qualifiers coming up, and so we'll do a draw pretty soon. I did Andy McIntosh. I think I got to get back to him. I've got his prize, and it's just been a long holiday. It's been great. It's been wonderful. I have gained weight. Okay, but it's still been wonderful. Where was I? I forgot where it was. Okay, our Leonardo's and Millhopper quick picks. We appreciate Kyle Cullen over at Leonardo's, and we're going to give you one pick, and it is a spread that I never thought I would see. In fact, go back to we thought Florida State and Georgia might be playing for the national title. They aren't. Instead, they're playing in the Orange Bowl. And the spread now has grown because FSU players keep opting out. 19 players are either opt out or injured. I think the latest was Keon Coleman, who I can't understand why he would play in that game. There's still some guys for Georgia that they aren't sure about, but I don't think anybody cares. Their quarterback's going to be there. Most of their great players are going to be there. They've had some guys opt out. I think Ladd McConkey said he hasn't decided whether he's going pro or not, but he's going to play in the game. I haven't heard of what Brock Bowers is going to do. I may have missed that. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is, this is your Leonardo's at Millhopper quick picks. Georgia giving 19 against Florida State. Now, would those guys have all opted out if they were in the playoffs? No, of course not. Guys would still be injured, and I still get the CFP argument. I get their argument, the committee's argument. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's right, but like I said to Dennis, we're good. We're good with it. But anyway, that is your pick. Georgia minus 19 against FSU. I never thought I'd be saying that. Now, I might have said that 3 years ago, when FSU was still floundering around and Georgia was great, but not this year. I never thought I'd be saying that. So that is your pick. Get it in. It is time for us to go to this, that, and the other, which we always do on Thursdays, and is brought to you by our friends at Ironwood Golf Course, our great friends at Ballyhoo Grill, which I think we're going to tonight, and our great friends at Dark Shackhow Insurance. We appreciate all of our great sponsors. And look, I'll be honest with you guys. We've got a couple people that are going to drop off because we kind of signed them through football season, and I'm going to try to re-sign them. But if they don't, they don't, and we understand it. We appreciate everything about them. But there's some availability. So if you want to get involved, just give me a call or email me or text me. It's really easy. Really easy. I I give you a good deal too. And you know the kind of guests we get. I'm not going to go through it. You know the kind of guests we get. People love it. And I love doing the show. That's all you need. All right. So this, that, and the other. This was when Caleb Williams opted out of USC, which I certainly don't blame. He's going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. I wouldn't have played in that game either. I know that that's blasphemous to say, but I get it. You already won a Heisman. You've done everything you can. Your team just wasn't good enough, and you are out. So when he opts out, though, you go, well, they're going to lose because Louisville won 10 games this year, and they got a pretty good team. They just played in the ACC championship game versus a 7-5 team without their starting quarterback. So that is that the starter is Miller Moss for that game last night. Miller Moss, never heard of him, didn't know anything about him. First start in his career. Okay, well, he's going up against Jack Plummer, who is one of my least favorite quarterbacks in college football. I do remember, though, that Graham Mertz was one of my least favorite when he was at Wisconsin, and that turned out okay. But Jack Plummer just makes bad decisions a lot. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. The point is the other, which is that Miller Moss threw 6 touchdown passes, set a bowl record last night in that game against Louisville. And it was pretty impressive, pretty darn impressive. But the thing is, that's the thing. USC still had Lincoln Riley calling the plays, still had Cliff Kingsbury as an offensive analyst, and he's on the field with a headset, so he's very involved. He's another coach. I mean, you can call him analyst or whatever you want. Still had the same offensive line, pretty much. I think they had all their guys back, and that's a really good offensive line. Still had these talented receivers, including one that certainly is going to get drafted and said, I'm going to play anyway. So it was still a great offense. Now, their defense still stunk. But Jack Plummer could only get 28 points out of him because he's Jack Plummer. But I don't want to make it all about him. It's the this, that, and the other is about this kid, Miller Moss, who now will be the starter next year and will be on a Heisman list. Somebody will have him on a Heisman list because he looked that good in this game. And again, his receivers, his offensive line, he should buy them all Segways. Like, who did that on Hard Knocks the other night? I can't remember which player gave everybody on his team Segways. I think was it Mostert? Might have been. Anyway, all right, let's move on from this, that, and the other to our Swamp Restaurant. Games of the weekend. You can go over to the Swamp Restaurant and watch any of these games. All kinds of specials for you, and the food's great too. We love our friends over there, Ryan and Kyle, and the great job they do at the Swamp Restaurant. And I'm not going to give you every game because if I did, we would be here for 4 hours. I'm going to give you the game I'm going to watch, or that I'm going to make sure I watch every day. I can give you the times of those. Friday. I'm not going to give you the Thursday games because probably listen to this on Thursday night or Friday. Anyway, Friday, Missouri, Ohio State. That is a game I definitely want to watch. I don't think many Missouri guys have opted out. I know that the word is Marvin Harrison's not practicing because he's been injured, and we'll see what happens there. In fact, I need to look at my picks because we're now getting serious from our Drew Copeland contest the other day. So that game is at 8 on ESPN. You have 4 games on Friday. That is one of them. That's the one you got to make sure you watch. They start at noon, go all day. This, again, ESPN, it's the way they worked it out. Saturday, you have, I think the game I want to make sure I watch is Ole Miss, Penn State. That's a noon game on ESPN. Yeah, again, on Saturday, you have 4 games. Obviously, Sunday, the NFL takes over. That's fine. Don't need to even worry about those games. I mean, I'm going to watch them, but I'm just saying, I'm going to get right to Monday and give you the times. Alabama, Michigan is a 5 o'clock start on ESPN. You heard Dennis Dodd talking about why that was. I wasn't aware that was the reason why. But that's why we have smart people on to tell you what it is. Obviously, that's on ESPN. Texas, Washington is slated for 8:45 start on ESPN. And Florida basketball plays Saturday. Now, it feels like it's been a year since they played, but they play Saturday against Quinnipiac. That game is at 1 o'clock. It is on ESPNU. So you have that as well. So you got a lot to watch. And I'm glossing over some games that I guarantee you I'm going to be watching. But those are our Swamp Restaurant games of the weekend. Let us get to our final thing for the day. Pat Dooley's Storytime, brought to you by Eastlake Pediatrics and our good friends there, Mike Jordan and the folks. And we appreciate them. This story is going to involve Fred Taylor. And I don't know how many of you know this, and you probably don't, but my brother, who lives in Jacksonville, lived next door to Fred Taylor when he was playing for the Jaguars. Got to know his wife, and Fred's wife got to be good friends. They had a relationship, and it was pretty cool. And so again, I had a relationship with him as a interviewing him many times. And so we are there for Christmas at Tim's house in Jacksonville. I'm sorry, I'm blanking out here for a second. In Jacksonville. And so we're there, and somebody says, "Hey, Tim needs you to come outside." So I go outside, and Fred Taylor's standing there, and they're talking in the driveway, just talking as neighbors would talk about Christmas. And so I start walking up there with a big smile on my face. I go, "Man, Fred." And Fred looks up and goes, and my brother goes, "Hey, look who it is." And he points to me, and Fred goes, "Oh, man, Robbie Andrew." So I'm like, "No." And of course he goes, No, it's Pat Dooley." He goes, "Oh, yeah, Pat Dooley, yeah." Man, I know Robbie and I were born a day apart, and I know that my eyes are tearing laughing at this. I know that we lived together in junior college and college, and we've worked together desks side by side, and we're still best friends, and he's on the podcast all the time. But I don't think Robbie wants me to be confused with him, and vice versa, probably. So, but it was just funny. I laugh now thinking about it. At the time, it was kind of embarrassing. Fred, I covered you for 4 years, and you don't know. But hey, we were interchangeable. We were always at everything together. So I get it. I certainly get it. And Fred, good luck on getting into the Hall of Fame. We're all rooting for you. And just like, also, I did want to mention this. Laura Rutledge posted on Twitter, her baby Jack had an emergency. They had to airlift him, and apparently everything's going good there. So if you've been following that story at all, it feels like everything is going well. We still don't know what it is, and that's private, and that's up to them. But obviously, prayers are with Laura and baby Jack, and she's been on the show on the podcast many times, and we'll probably get her on again when she calms down from after football season and taking care of a baby that has had issues. So I'm hoping everything's going well there. It feels like it is. It feels like, just looking at her latest post, and you can check that out at Twitter. And I'm going to call it Twitter until I die. Okay. I'm not going to call it X. Stupid. All right. That's going to do it for another duly noted podcast. Another one. Yes, it's done. And it's always brought to you by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Studios. Now, the studios will be here again on Sunday. And then on Thursday, Coach Spurrier will join us in studio at the Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. Can't wait for that as well. Zach, great job as always putting this together and doing a great job with the Zoom and everything. And we appreciate him so much. And we will be back for a special Sunday show to preview playoff games. And maybe we'll have some good news about Florida. That would be nice for a change. Until then, I am Pat Dooley. I'm deep, I'm way back, and I am out of here.